What's up, Midjourney nerds? Midjourney Fast Hour Podcast.
Welcome.
Drew Brucker, Rory Flynn. This guy's always in a new place every time I see him. What's happening, dude?
What's going on, man? This is the life of someone who is, I call it environment ADD. Like, I can't stay in the same place for more than
Oh, dude,
like,
me and you
days.
share that.
It's why an office never worked for me, because I'm just like, there's no way. I'm always on the move. But yeah, this week we're coming to you from Naples, Florida.
Ooh.
Down here
Naples, Florida.
a couple days with the wife, with my wife's family at her aunt's house. So we're just chilling. Hopefully they're out doing things at the pool and stuff like that. And hey, we're on the grind.
What's the weather?
It's nice. It's comfortable. It's like 70-ish.
Love it.
Not hot, not cold. It's like right in the middle. So I'll take that.
That's awesome, dude. That's
Don't
great.
need the tropics. You know, just give me comfort.
just give me comfort. What about
Yeah.
Speaking of comfort, how was your New Year's Eve? Did you get to enjoy that? Did you guys do anything? Was it a stay-at-home kind of thing? Like, what'd y'all do?
It's kind of a stay-at-home thing. We were, we had Faye, of course, but we also had my wife's friend came over. We were just hanging out, drinking a couple bottles of wine. I made some nice little luxurious pasta with some lobster and some squid, and it was like, it's rock and roll. Keep pretty simple. Watch TV. Woke up with a hangover the next day. How about you?
We did a little bit of both. So
All right.
we went out to a friend's house, but the friend lives 5 minutes down the street. They also have twins. They have twin boys. We have twin girls. They had a few
crazy.
people over. Yeah, they had it was maybe like 12 to 16 of us. Some kids, some adults. Went there around 7:30, left at 10:30, 11, came back, put the kids down. And then New Year's, the kids were in bed with my wife, and I'm upstairs by myself, and I'm just like, this is dumb. This is dumb. Like, I'm just going to bed. So I think, actually, this was the first New Year's ever that I went to bed before 12. Like,
Really?
yeah.
This was the first New Year's I've stayed up in a while, which I
Really?
was like, yeah, because like most of the time, last year my wife was pregnant. It was like, she's just like, I just want to go to bed. I'm like, oh, fine, me too. Like,
Yeah.
But it's we were reminiscing on the days of, this is when we were back in our 20s and a little bit nuts. When we used to go out in New York, they used to call them New Year's Day parties. So you go out maybe like late dinner-ish, like 9, 10 o'clock, try to make it to the ball drop, then go to bed, then wake up at 4 a.m. and go to the clubs. So you go to the clubs from
That sounds
4
like some
a.m.
European style stuff,
Yeah.
Like
4 a.m. until about
No
1 in
way.
the afternoon, and you walk out of there like you are like, I am such a scum of the earth, but that was fun.
there's no way. There's no way I could do that. Absolutely not.
It was great. It's some of the craziest parties you ever been to. Like people that you'd show up there at 4 like you were the new crop. Like there was people that had been there since 8 p.m. the last night, and they're just like on their last legs, and you're coming in somewhat fresh, but it's it's totally interesting having your first drink at 4 a.m. in the morning and then like starting to go. But that's New York in your 20s. You do stuff like that.
that might be the only time I've never had a new drink, like started
Yeah.
drinking. 4 a.m. That,
Eh,
well, maybe. but
it happens quick, though.
Yeah.
You
If I
get to-
have,
you
it's
get
been
to
a good
100.
20 years. Yeah.
You get to 100 in about a drink or two. It's not like,
Yeah.
when maybe you start at 8, 9 o'clock and it's like, 2, 3 glasses of wine deep. You're like, maybe I feel something. 4 a.m. It's like, bang, we're right into it.
I mean, you're a fraternity guy too. Like,
oh, yeah.
we did, 7, 8 in the morning, no big deal. Like, we could do that. But
That was,
4 a.m., like to
casual.
wake up. Yeah. So,
Especially for football or basketball or any sort of sporting event that started at noon, right? Like you were up at 7, ready to go. And
Yep.
then,
and it was an early
partying.
night. And then that might have been one of those where it's like, yeah, you maybe fell asleep a little bit early, like a 9 to 10. Then you woke up around like 3. Maybe there's still some people straggling. And then you kind of like re-engage. I don't know, man.
Those were always my favorite, the people that were like trying to make it through the whole night to the next day. And
Absolutely.
you woke up and saw them and you're just like, they're just a complete mess.
You're a mess.
You're like, dude, go to bed.
Oh,
It was
my
a
God.
valiant effort, but failed.
Did you ever live in the fraternity house?
Oh yeah, did 1 year in there. That was we
Okay.
had 40 guys in one house. That was
Yeah.
that was a hell of a fucking that was a hell of an environment.
Oh my God.
And we had a house mom who was about 82 years old.
Oh, we didn't have no house moms.
That was it was because it was on campus. It was required. And it was, she had like her own little apartment. I think she was like taking sleeping pills. and
Who
going to bed
takes
at, like,
that
7
job?
o'clock.
Who takes that job?
God bless Ruth.
I mean,
Talk
talk about babysitting, but not babysitting.
idiots.
Like,
Yeah.
jeez, bro.
But she loved us too. We'd bring her stuff, and we'd bring her food and like give her wine and things like that, and just try to get her like every once in a while you try to get her like drunk or something. Like it's
This
close
is
to
a good
Christmas or
reminder
something.
of there are different people in this world, and
Yeah.
99% of people would not want to do that job.
Because then we got a house dad after that, after she retired, and he was like 40, and this dude loved
Shut
every
up.
second of it. He would
He
bring
didn't, he didn't have any kids, I bet.
he would bring
There's
his
no way.
trailer smoker in the back, and you'd come back from like the afternoon on Saturday, and he'd have like a whole hog on there, and we'd be like, dude,
Come
he's like,
on.
I wanted it, I wanted to do it. You guys can have some. Thanks.
Unbelievable.
Sick. But that's the South, though. That's the difference between going to school in the South and going, being in New York. You don't have anyone with a trailer smoker, like that just decides one day they want to sit out back, drink beer, and smoke a hog for 12 hours, right? Like that's just this idea of a good time while listening to like Fish. I love this guy.
I did 2 tours. I did 2 tours in the house. One was sophomore year. The other was senior year.
Okay.
Because went back on the what do they call it?
The
Executive leadership
council?
team?
Something
Executive
like
council?
that.
I
Yeah.
don't even remember. But, it was like a bunch of us, like seniors decided to do it and then like right back in it. You know what I mean?
Right
It
back
was
in.
just, dude. And by
It was
the end
hard.
by the end of that year, it was like, I'm done. Like, I'm so done. Like, I did it. Like, I don't need anything else from school. Like, I've seen and done it all. Like, next phase of life, please. Let's just go.
Oh my God, man! We had a satellite house after we moved out. So I moved out lived in the dorms freshman year, lived in the house sophomore year. Then I moved into my own place at the end of the sophomore year, and we had like the satellite house, which was
Yeah, where
basically in
where all the
between-
parties.
It was in
Yeah.
between because it was right by our downtown area where the bars were and
Yep.
where everyone else lives. So everyone would just you'd get people coming from the bars, going to the bars and coming
Oh,
back.
yeah. Yep.
There was just, everyone. We just left our door open. People would just be in and out the whole day, all day from class too. They just stop in. I'd walk into my apartment. There'd be like 10 people on my couch, like on their
normal
laptops.
stuff.
It's like, what the hell? That or drinking or doing something stupid.
Beer pong going on in the middle of the day.
Like
Playing-
Tuesday at like 1:00 in the afternoon.
Playing a World Series of beer pong.
Something.
Yeah.
Something like
Best
that.
out of 7.
Oh my God, never shutting up. It was like, and then, I look back on that and my rent was $275 a month. And I'm like, well, come on.
Where'd that go? Need that back.
That was, it was all of $275 a month though. We're not talking luxury here. We're talking like
Unbelievable.
killing roaches with baseball bats and kind of stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Also the South,
Yep.
a little bit of a
Yep.
taste
Good
there.
times. If you guys ever want to know what kind of conditions, young men lived in the fraternity days, just come talk to us. It's borderline being homeless with maybe the exception that you got a roof over your head and you might have a door. But you know what? Even some of our rooms didn't have doors on them.
We didn't have a
Couple of them.
doorknob for a while.
Yeah.
So we just had a little stub that you had to turn.
Little stub. You got to do what you got to do.
We had someone throw, I will keep this for purposes of the podcast not getting flagged on YouTube.
Please. Yeah.
There was
We're already
a-
revealing too much here.
A phallic object that was thrown through our window one time. So it was actually thrown through our front window. It broke the glass, and then we covered it up with a beer box for about 6 months because we didn't get
Yeah.
the window fixed.
Yeah.
But that object became our doorknob for a long time because we realized less people would come in if they had
You
to go that
become
way.
very resourceful, in those years.
Yeah.
You really do. And
Yeah.
So Anyway,
We're dumb.
you know what?
Just if
This
you guys
is the
didn't know
perfect
this.
transition. Did you
Yeah.
did you know this is the perfect transition? Because we're getting into decisions.
Oh,
And there were a lot of bad decisions made during that time. Probably
Correct.
some good ones, but more bad ones. Now we're leaning into decisions 20 years later here, Rory, as it relates to robot art and what the hell we're trying to do inside a tool like Midjourney.
correct.
And you brought up this idea up today, and it's something that I think like we we always go back to, because it's fascinating to think about all the different ways that you can impact and navigate through a tool like Midjourney and get different or similar outcomes, whatever you're trying to go for. But there really are so many different of these micro decisions that go in along the way of whatever you're trying to create, whether that's, something that you're trying to create for yourself or it's something you're trying to create for a client. So today, right, we're going to go into that. We're going to start, kind of going into how you make decisions, how we make decisions based on the circumstance, based on the scenario. And hopefully we uncover a few different things that you haven't thought about before or get you thinking about again.
Yeah, totally. I think it's a good point because we look at this stuff, right? Like I think you and I create a lot for personal usage, but there's also the commercial usage of where people are trying to create for, and you have to be more precise, right? So like what I think might look awesome, a client might think needs refining. And then you have to go and be like, oh, this is one singular image or one concept or one look, and I need to go and then, play with that versus like, oh, me freelancing and saying like, I like this piece of the image and I like this and let me go in this direction where there's nothing other than my own pure creation that will drive it, not there has to be an end result. So yeah, I think a lot of people give up on stuff in the tool because it's just like, can't do it. Most of the time it can, but there's obviously certain situations where it's not going to work and you have to go to other tools for that. But they have given us so many different little features within Midjourney that you can utilize to get to the end result that you're looking for. So, we call it I call it decision tree. It's like if not this, then this. If not this, then this. It's kind of like
I suck
coding
at those,
logic.
by the way. Yeah. Don't
hard
put
to
one of
map it
those in
out.
front of me. Actually, you know what? They're almost impossible to map out. Like you could get lost in that. Like they're not so hard to follow, but when you're building them, holy shit. I don't have the mind for that. The capacity for that is just, you need a totally different brain than the one that's in my head.
Because it goes back to a few episodes ago while I was doing like this hackathon with this, this other company. They were trying to do claymation, like something simple, right? Where it's like, oh, we want it to look very rough, like not polished claymation. And, first we started like going down the prompt road, text prompt, like trying to get it there. And it wasn't happening. And then it was like, sparked in the head. It's like, oh, if we drop the stylize and we drop the quality weight, like we won't have to go through all this like hoops and bounds trying to get to this, sort of perfect text prompt. It'll just do it for us with the parameters.
Yeah.
So like sometimes it's just simple decisions like that save you time and a lot of like frustration. Because those like, even dropping the quality weight, I don't even think a lot of people know you could do that. Like it's just, that used to be from a V4, V5.
Yeah. Disappeared for a while. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it was still accessible. It's just like it kind of fell off the face of the planet because you're just like, well, are people even using that anymore? And it kind of felt like the quality was good enough anyway. You didn't really need to explore, but
yeah. So like that's an example. That or like sometimes you want something that's way more minimalistic, super clean, and working for example on a piece of Japanese calligraphy with someone, and we just realized that Niji works better for that. Versus regular promptly. So sometimes it's like these little sort of things that you get into, and I think forced problem solving in that sense, like client work and stuff like that, helps a lot because you get to these points without having to necessarily like conceptualize it because you're just like you wouldn't do it on your normal workflow, but you might have to do it for someone else if that makes sense.
Yeah,
so
100%.
So a little bit of context there, everyone, for what the hell a decision tree is, why we're talking about it.
Yeah. Let's find a good example of just a prompt that maybe we want to, like, let's think of something that we want to create, and let's just start with those initial 4 results we get back, because this is really where, outside of the prompt and the parameters, which, again, are sort of like these pre-decisions that you make, and all of those variables that come into play, the text that you include in the prompt, the stylized weight or the value, the aspect ratio, chaos, right? Like
personalized, non-personalized now at this point too, right? Like that all plays a little factor into it.
Yeah, and I think maybe like it's important to realize that there are a lot of different ways to prompt. It's not just text, and it's not just maybe even blending or using a style reference, right? Like there are literally 20 to 30 maybe more ways to do that now when you think about all the different stacking and options that exist.
Yeah, I think it's probably good to even start with just like where your first decision. Like when you just let's just say you're creating for pure pleasure. You're
Yeah.
starting like what are you starting with? Like how are you going long on your first prompt? Are you going super short? Are you exploring things? Like how are you starting that
Yeah,
process?
yeah. Let's break this down. The way that I think about it is all about the specific nature of what I'm going for. Do I have creative liberty within that? How big is that gap? If it's something, for myself, I'm much more loose with those things. I'm thinking about, a general idea. I would say most of the time I don't start from scratch. I would say that I try to source either something that I've created or going back to the idea of like exploring Midjourney's, community, right? Like going through explore pages or smart search or global search to see if there's something there, a building block that can get me from 0 to 1. And so, what I'll do is I'll probably go through my archive, my history, smart search, search for a particular keyword, see what's there, right? And assess it that way. If I don't have anything, if it's not something I've ever created before, that's where I typically will rely on some sort of third-party curation and then get from 0 to 1 that way. So, kind of going back to some of the things that we've talked about in the past. Let's say, give me some wild idea.
Wild idea. I'm not the best at wild. Let's see.
Something I can spell. Lamborghini was a little. You were pushing
Escalator.
it last time.
Let's try something.
Escalator.
Yeah.
Okay. Like I've never done Escalator before.
Me either.
Right.
So I saw it in the airport. I was like, you know what? I've never prompted for an escalator. There we
Perfect.
go. All right.
And this is a perfect example because this is exactly what I would go through and do. So I've never done an escalator before. I would think about, okay, is this just like a general idea that I have, or is this a client request? And that's where, the first decisions kind of come into play. But, like for escalator in general, let's say it's something for me, I'm thinking about the type of composition, camera angle with the escalator. I'm thinking about what type of story I'm trying to tell with the image. So for example, for me, like I like something really symmetrical in this case with the escalator because it is sort of like a leading line anyway. I just like that nature of it. So I think like something like this stands out. So I might click into this. I might say, okay, like what was text prompted here? Did they put anything with the camera angle? No. So that tells me that it was a lot more up to chance, right? And so for me, I would want to understand what angle this is. I'm thinking about things like ground level or wide angle shot or maybe even ultra wide angle shot to capture this type of look. And then, factor in the other elements I'm trying to include from there in the image, right? So maybe I'll start with, really just trying to source the style of the escalator that I'm going for. So this is like more photorealism. If it's something that's more illustrative, maybe I'm looking for something like this, right? And then I'm looking for, okay, flat and simple illustration. Okay, I really like that flat and simple illustration of an escalator. Do I like this view? Did they put that in here? Like all those thoughts are going through my mind in terms of what I'm going to do next based on that. So like this one, I really like the lighting here, right? So like I'm taking inspiration from a couple different places and then deciding how I'm going to act on it. So again, it comes down to, am I creating this for myself? Am I creating this for a client?
Totally. See, this is what I like about this is seeing how you're doing it because I do it totally opposite. Like it looks like you have some prep involved. Like there's a little bit of like knowledge sourcing that you're doing. And me, like personally, I'm going and just like typing it in and then just like seeing what I get. And then, because it's more so of like, where can I go with what, where my brain wants to take things once it needs to, I feel like I'm the worst client for Midjourney. Like when people are always like, I'll know it when I see it. Like if you're a client, like,
Great.
just give me something. I'll know it when I see it. Right. Like
Can't
that's
wait.
kind of how
Thank you.
and that's how I approach like prompting Midjourney. That's probably why my style codes now or my profile codes are like demonic and horrific. They're just like fuck you, dude. It's been done too much here. But
that's the main approach. If this is under the scenario where it's like not something I'm super familiar with, then I might even take it a step further and say like I really like the moodiness of this, and then click into this, and then maybe maybe I have other
like
ideas too, right?
Yeah.
So I'm looking for things like okay. because I like this, what did I like about it? Let's just say it was like sort of like this red neon lighting. Well, now I have other interpretations of that. So that might change my mind on the camera angle. That might change my idea on the color, like the mood I'm going for. Like this is much more cold, still got sort of like that neon look to it, but it's dope. So all those things are going into play.
I just want to stop you for 1 second because I think this is also just a great reminder that you don't have to come up with these prompts from the void of your brain. Like Drew's doing this in a very iterative way, which is like you go and you look and you find different pieces and then you put everything together, right? Like it's not just instead of trying to grow and source all of your ingredients to create a meal. Like you don't have to go and farm every single idea from your brain. You can go and pick up things from different stores and then put it all together. You know what I mean? So I think it's
different ingredients. There you go.
Yeah. Great way to put it all together.
Yeah. So like what I might do from here is like, let's just say I like this one. Then I'm getting into to your point, I'm taking ingredients. So like, I think this has sort of like a cinematic look to it. So I could say cinematic shot. I might use still, for example, if I'm going for like more of like the landscape view. I think still works better for like your typical cinematic still shot.
Okay.
But I'm going to put cinematic shot because I know cinematic has sort of like color grading involved and it has sort of a moody feel to it. So I'll go cinematic shot. Let's do wide angle perspective. Or actually, let's do this. I'll just do cinematic, wide angle shot of escalators. Then this is where I'll think about like things like what is going on in the scene. Then from there, I'll go into like something like the lighting. I'll go into the colors. I'll go into shadows if it makes sense or any other details that I want to have for the shot. Then I get into my parameters, right? So like for this, I could save myself a lot of time if I like this color and aesthetic just by go ahead and applying the style, right?
So also, here's a good place to like stop for like perspective, right? Right now, if you were just to like, let's go hit prompt and we're going to add our aspect ratio. To me, this is the first decision. What are you trying to get out of the shot? Like, is the escalators the focus? Do you want to show like the size and scale of them? Do you want to show them like vertically going up? Because then your aspect ratio might be more like 4:5 or something that's in a portrait style.
Great point. Yeah.
If you want to show like a wider, cooler, like not cooler, just like a more diverse environment, right, with the escalators and everything else surrounding it, or the escalators surrounding it, you might want to go with something like 2:1 or 16:9, right? So this, because we talked about it a while back on the aspect ratio episode, where it's like this decision could like change your whole route, right? Like the way it's going to look. So I think this is where you start to branch. This is where it goes into like the multiverse.
Yes.
At this point,
absolutely.
Yeah.
Right. This is, like we've already talked about how many different ways you could go just based on the prompt, putting this together. We haven't even gotten to the parameters yet. And then, once we hit submit, what takes place after that? So, like you brought up a great point with the aspect ratio. The other thing I'm thinking about too is this image about the escalators? What's the subject, right? Are the escalators a part of the image or are they the focus of the image? So like wide angle shot of escalators where there is a dark hooded man. Let's just use that for now. And then so cinematic wide angle shot of escalators where there's a dark hooded man. What else is going in the scene? To me, that's not that interesting. So I might think about, okay, like what is he doing? Like smoking a cigarette. There is a faint and moody warm from the cigarette. So like this I'm right. Like when you write, I'm the type of writer where I will just kind of like vomit it out and then I'll go back and tweak it. So cinematic wide angle shot of escalators where there's a dark hooded man smoking a cigarette. There's a faint and moody warm spark from the cigarette as smoke starts to billow up. Yeah. And then, do I want to say anything else about the scene? Because
maybe
if
colors?
I'm going to...
Oh, no, you're using the style. Sorry.
That's what I was going to say, right? Like, because I could just go ahead and grab style if I want to focus on the lighting, the aesthetic that I have here. And then this is even great because I could focus on how much of that I want to come through and how much I want to leave up to interpretation of Midjourney. So this is where like something like permutations are great. because again, we're exploring different decisions you can make, and I want to kind of uncover those proactively while I'm prompting, because I'm going to miss 90% of them anyway. Let me see if I can, uncover more than just the 1% and get closer to the 5 or 10% of what is uncoverable. So like here I might go, let's play with like a low style weight of 25. Let's jack one up to 175, and then let's do one for 150. We mention this all the time. I'm just going to mention it anyway. But at some point, right, with style references and style weight, you're going to start to take the image into account, right? The image is going to start to bleed over, not just the colors and the aesthetics. So what I would worry about with something like style weight and running it too high is it's probably not going to get this part, because that's not in this scene. So that's why I'm playing with low values. I'm also going to play with high values. Let's just say I like this aspect ratio. This is in a 4:5, of course. I love 4:5. This is where another decision comes into play with how much, stylized do I want to use. So for me, let's run one at 250. Let's run one at 500.
Before you hit, I was going to say, make sure personalization's off on this one for the purposes probably of just showing the outcomes, because I think it has. If anyone's not familiar with personalize, if you don't run it, it does have a major effect on your output, depending on what you're doing.
So let's do this then. I'm going to run this whole sequence, and then I'm going to run this whole sequence with personalize also.
All right, good idea.
Okay, and then this is going to give us plenty of This is going to give us plenty of images. So perfect example. I got to reattach my style here. Perfect. Submit. Okay. And then let's go to the creations. And this is, again, where you're going to have a lot more decisions to make. But with me running all those different iterations, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. 12 times 4, 48 images I'm getting back already. And that was just by running permutations with style weight, stylize, and personalize on and off, right? So you talk about, and you and I aren't sitting over anybody's shoulder, but I think this is the part of experimentation where people just aren't going deep enough, right? So then you're almost settling for an image that you kind of like versus an image that's great, right? So I use this as an opportunity to kind of look at what's there. Did it get my prompt right? Things like that. So like, let's start at the bottom. We've got personalize off 250. And we're just going to go from here, right?
So you got stylized 20 or style weight 25. So it's pulling in, just subtle bits of that image. It looks like it's doing pretty well though on that, because we didn't necessarily in this prompt. If you're looking at this prompt wondering why it looks so much like the style reference image without having much style weight attached to it, it's because we didn't really prompt for much of the aesthetic of the image, right? So it's kind of just taking that. That's why it's attaching so much of that image to this, because we didn't really look at colors, right? Didn't really look at composition on this much.
Great point.
That's why you're getting that.
Great
right?
point. And you know what? I noticed something else, right? And that is I have wide angle shot of here, but I decided to do an aspect ratio of 4:5.
There you go. Let's
open this up to like a 3:2 or a 16:9. Because we're gonna get some different stuff here, and actually, I'm thinking let's do 3:2. So let's run that and get another example in this mix. Oh, shit, did it again. There we go.
So we do this all the time. I do this every single time with style.
There we go.
Always.
I hate how it doesn't bring that in there. Just a small gripe. So with this, I got to make sure to take this one, change this. Otherwise, it's going to give me another error and say I don't have a style selected. So. Boom. Perfect. So now let's just kind of go through these. So this was stylized 500. Again, style weight 25. And to your point, Rory, like this took the colors pretty well even at the low point. And so I let that do the heavy lifting. I didn't try to think about how I'm going to explain this lighting, and look, I do photography, but like I don't want to spend mental energy trying to think about every single word I'm going to use every time I want to try to prompt. I mean, that is going to take a toll creatively. These are adding more style weight, right? So you're starting to see that kind of come in to play a little bit more.
That took the wide angle right there. That
it did. That was a really solid one. And then we're getting into 75 now with 500. Damn,
We
that's
have the
kind of
smoke.
cool.
Yep.
Let's keep going. This is style weight 150.
And now we've added your profile. So
Now
we're
we've
into
got the
personalize.
profile. That's
Right,
right.
and you-
There you go.
And you can see the difference in it, how much it takes. Like now it's a little bit hazier and less maximalism, from, Midjourney's standard creative profile, right? To yours, which is a little bit more, like I said, like refined, clean, like very aesthetically pleasing.
Yeah, and actually, I like some of those non-personalized ones
Yeah.
here in this case. Normally I don't, but like those ones are pretty solid. What I'm looking at now, Rory, is I've got some smoke from the cigarette. But
Yeah.
what I didn't point out is where I wanted that figure. Are they facing the camera or away from the camera? This is put them
Yep.
away from the camera. So you're not, and most of these, you can't see the cigarette. You can't see that warm spark of light, right? So that's when I would go back. And if that really mattered to me, I would make sure to really think about that language a little bit further and put some stronger weight on that, whether that's moving that more to the front or just kind of like reiterating that through different use of words and language. The great thing is when you're using this for yourself, you're opening yourself up to other options that maybe you didn't envision, and you can end up liking images that it wasn't initially what you were going for, right? Which is the beauty of that, because it's like, oh, well, this guy isn't smoking a cigarette, but I do like the way that the lighting really kind of goes up with the leading lines, and then you also have the horizontal lines and,
Yeah.
Blah, 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 blah.
And see, this is where you might even iterate. Like, again, this is for personal, right? Like, now what that sparked in my head was like, Led Zeppelin just popped in my head, like Stairway to Heaven. And it's like, oh, like Escalator to Heaven. I might go and chase that direction, right? You know what I mean? So it's like you can use Midjourney to be your creative assistant in that sense because
There you
it
go.
has the one thing that we're using Midjourney for, guys. I reiterate this all the time. There is no other tool. I don't care what you say. I will die on this hill. It has the most creative capacity in terms of like its own mind. Like other tools are super precise in terms of what you say, what you get. This one, like with the creative controls, the parameters, everything, it'll go in a direction you never ever could have foreseen, and has never been created before, right? I don't care what anyone says. Sorry,
That's
like,
a great point.
There's things I've gotten here that there's no way in hell exist in photography or illustration, whatever. Like it's its own mind. So that's why we use it for this stuff.
And this is where we got the 3-2, right? So this is capturing more of that wide angle shot of what I had in my mind, right? So
and the
these
perspective got tighter on a lot of the guys, right? Like the looked like they were closer in the foreground or the midground versus sort of like always in the midground, if that makes sense.
Yeah, like these are
Right?
turning out pretty awesome, right? Again, we started out with no idea other than Escalator, and this is how we sort of got here. I like that Stairway to Heaven idea. Like we might want to explore that. The other thing is, I don't know if this is the best example for it, but this is sort of like a rule of thumb for me. If I run something and I don't get what I want in any of the original grids of 4 in terms of like whether it's putting the cigarette, in the spark or not compositionally the way like if there's one major piece that's missing, I'm not going to keep re-rolling it because that's a waste of time. I'm assuming that if it doesn't get any of those 4 into something that I like or what I was going for, then I need to change something. That's it. That's the tool's way of telling me I need to change something within the prompt, whether that's a parameter or whether that's the actual text or whether
Good
it's
point.
using a reference. Like, so don't waste your time there re-rolling. I like to use re-rolling when I found something that's really good and I
Yes.
want to go. I want to get more and more and more. And I think the other way to think about seeing more diversity is that's where you get into things like chaos, right? It's just like, depends how much liberty you have within your creation. But yeah, this is typically my process. And then that's where it's like, how close am I to what I want? If I really like this shot, I'm just going to hit subtle because subtle is so tiny that it's like, okay, maybe he turns his head slightly to the right, or maybe there's something that, pops up that's just that little bit extra. However, if I like the general idea of what's here and I like 90% of it, and I kind of want to, give Midjourney a little bit more creative control and loosen up, then I'm going to hit very strong. And I might do that a couple times. Very strong typically is going to take 3 or more things and change within the image. It's going to keep whether I'm using a style reference or not, it's going to keep that color, the aesthetic, generally speaking. What it will typically do is change things like if it's a person, it might change their eyes, their nose, their smile. If they've got earrings, what kind of earrings are in there? Potentially their clothes, their camera angle, right? But it's not going to take you so far away from the image. It should be conjoined and connected. So like, let's just kind of compare the difference, right? This, I believe, was...
Those are subtle.
These are the subtle. And you can see subject in the same place, right? Escalator in the same place. Only difference here is you got a little bit of smoke.
Not too crazy of a difference.
Hoods change. And then when you get it up to strong, you're going to get just that, like stronger variations.
Like there, that's a good one. Like that one is a good example of the strong. Like we didn't lose too much of the image, but you got that curvature in the lights, which now looks like really cool to me. Like with the way that it's arcing and going up, and it's like the visual aesthetic, like drawing you right to him. Like
yeah,
that's a good variation. You know, like that's a good one. I like
so
that.
This is where it's like really interesting. I might very strong that a few times, right? Because maybe I kind of like where it's going, but I'm not a huge fan of the 4, or I just want to see how deep this goes. I'm just going to go ahead and hit that like 2-3 times. Let's see what comes up, because this is at some point it becomes less about creation and more about curation. Mm-hmm. How are you going to decide on the best image out of 50? That's where we're going with this stuff. It's not just, hey, look, it gave me what I'm looking for, I'm good. There are times for that, but if you're really trying to dial something in, you're trying to decide how deep am I going to go? Have I done all the things I can do within the tool? And when is it no longer about Midjourney and maybe about something like Photoshop and fine-tuning it, or whatever the use case is to finalize the image?
Yeah. You can go into 7 billion different directions, because then it's like, do I change the style? Do I remix here? Do I change the style weight? Do I want to add more of it? Because I think remix can be utilized very well in some of these things, where if you like a particular structure of an image and you want to do like a remix subtle, you know, like, oh, maybe it's like you want to do like art on the walls, or like graffiti on the walls or something like that. Like a remix subtle here, or like a remix strong might be if you want to change the colors. Like I want neon green instead of neon blue, right? Like that's where remix can be your best friend. You know, is it perfect? No. Is it good? Yes. It does. You might have to run a few, like, yeah, black graffiti on the walls. Like that to me might give you, is this subtle or strong?
So I was going to say, I don't use remix a whole lot. So what I typically do is just do it on both, right? Because, you know, subtle, sometimes the remix, it just doesn't capture it. So typically I would say err on the side of strong. However, right, it's going to also change your image a little bit more. So I like to run them both. Black graffiti on the side walls of the escalators. I'm not going to think too hard about this right now, but like, let's try that. Let's hit submit. Let's press up, and that gives us the same command, and then we're just going to change this to strong. Let's see what we get on these. For the sake of time, this did give us probably what we were looking for, right?
So here's the little trick that I have with remix when this happens. A lot of times I'll just hit strong again and then hit enter. Like when it doesn't show up as much, just, you know, I'll hit remix strong with the same prompt, change nothing, just run it again. Like sometimes that gets you what you want, you know, because this then opens up to me another decision. It's like, oh, if remix isn't working to get the graffiti on the walls, do I then take it into edit? And do I highlight the walls and ask for the graffiti, right? Like this is like leading you to that way. If you want to get to some point, where do I go? Maybe it's edit.
Great
right?
point. Like, and that goes back to how are you going to use editor, right? Because if you're going to add something, it is harder to add in editor. So you probably need to go about it either in remix, right? And you're going to maybe paint something out if you're going to use editor, and then you could use an image reference, which I think was one of the ideas that you gave me. Yeah. Where it's like, that'll force it into the image. Mm-hmm. It's not perfect though, right? So like sometimes you almost have to find the right image reference to get it in there to look right. Meaning like if I put graffiti in here, like we could go and let's go to, I like that we're getting like real hands-on here.
Yeah, because this is like, again, something that we wouldn't probably do as like an image that we're trying to create, but it's just like showing the the different decisions that you might go through.
100%.
Yeah.
So like, let's just copy this. Now I'm looking at this. This is a very straight on view of the graffiti. I'm maybe worried about, is that going to actually kind of work this view, because these walls aren't straight on. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to give Midjourney plenty of room to work with here. I'm going to keep some of the wall. I want them to know that I want that wall, and give them enough information. Say that, like, I like how it transitions from light to dark, right? Same here, but I've left a lot of room for this graffiti to be placed. So now what we're going to do is we're going to drop this in. We're going to use that as an image weight. This is like,
Another
so what we'll
decision.
do. Yeah, it's another decision.
Yeah.
So
You realize how many you go through when you're trying to get something.
100%. This is why like we kind of nerd out on it, but like, so I'm going to submit that, but I could also say, I wonder how much that stylize, might factor into the result. I might also like take this out, because all the rest, and the reason I'm taking the other stuff out, by the way, is because it's already in the image. I don't even need to worry about it, right? It's not going to take away pixels that I've already created. So here I might just put black graffiti on the side wall. Also hit submit. Within that image reference too, you can weight it. You could weight the image reference, right, for how strong you want that to come through. So like, here are some examples just straight up. Like, obviously, like, that doesn't even necessarily like feel real to me.
So here's where like, if you go back to the Google search, right? If you go back to the Google search of the image, like the one in the middle black and white, sort of drippy on the top row, to the left, third, that one. Yep. Like, that one to me might get that sort of aesthetic if you copy that one and try it, because that one to me might give it like less of like a vector art feel and more of like a realism or something along those lines.
Yeah, good point.
It's doing right there is it looks like it's taking that vector sort of aesthetic, right? And it's like, so this is, again, when you're sourcing images too and you're looking for things that you want to, paste in there, right? And then maybe it's just like, black graffiti on the side wall, that might just work, and maybe it doesn't.
And then maybe like, let's just try to take the image weight down, right? So we're also saying it, but we're giving it enough juice. And so like, going back to that vector example, I might say, okay, like, it came through in all the examples, but like, it came through a little too good in the sense that it just like doesn't quite fit. So maybe I take that image weight down and play with that too, right? Like, you can manipulate this in a few ways. So let's go back to the top.
So you're getting a little bit more of like that. There, it's got that's like got more of the perspective. It's within the range. It's got more of the like. So again, this can be like sort of like the decisions, right? Like that vector image, same theory. Just sometimes the image isn't right on the image reference, but you can play with it, right? Because now this is easier now to edit. Let's just say you wanted to go and like do more of like the corners, right? Yeah, that too. Same thing.
Look at this. So we took the image weight down a little bit, and it became more flexible and malleable, right, to the image, which sometimes just giving it that little juice, because adding in editor, as we've talked about on these podcasts, is near impossible. You're going to just bang your head up against the wall, hitting reroll, trying to get it to jam something in there, even if it's got the room, versus just putting an image reference in and finding the weight on it. And so that's, like, that is a huge part of this. The other part is, what do we want to do with the image? Like, what is the end result? Do we care about this? While adding is a little bit more difficult and you have to do that in a different way, I might say, I want this person wearing something else. And then this is where it goes into more of your substitution or deleting stuff, which editor is really good at. Then I could just say, whatever I want that person wearing, it's going to pick that up and it's going to throw it right in here. Right. Yeah. Or if I don't want a distraction, right, I could kind of like, maybe there's certain pieces of this that I'm not crazy about. And typically maybe you want to do this like a piece at a time, but whatever, I could do that. So editor's great at removing and swapping.
Yeah. And if you wanted to make it breathe a little bit more, you can scale it down and give it a little bit more, like just like that, like something simple. You don't have to go crazy. Maybe you want a little bit more of the person, a little bit more of the stairs, or just like the sides, right? Like, these are little creative decisions that you can get, your fingers deep into if you want to. It's just like, do you really want to, go that way, or do you just want to take the image as its output, right? This is probably, I would say, like a common misconception for what, you see something that comes out of Midjourney, like you've seen on social, whatever. Like there's typically a lot of process like this that's going on behind the scenes. Like someone that's really good, like you look at those accounts on Instagram, or you see people on LinkedIn that have really good stuff. Like they are not just text prompting, enter, there's my image. Like it's a lot of this. A lot of like these little trials. Can we go deeper? Can we add something? Can we remove something? I don't like this thing. Like it's like true artist stuff where they're like, not that. That arm is in the weird position. That wisp of hair sucks. Like like they're being meticulous too.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, like that's, to me, this is what I like. I like the creative controls you have here, because you can, can't do this on certain platforms. You can't go this way with it. So,
and I like that, Midjourney's consolidated a couple of these steps in with Editor too. We've talked about that. Whereas like before you would have to pan or zoom and then do the other, and then, like change the AR. Like you had to like continuously use that same image, and, it would stretch over several steps, versus now you can kind of consolidate those. And just maybe one other thing to point out here, right? Like, because I edited the text prompt, right? And I focused on the fact that, hey, the only thing we were changing in that previous image was the graffiti, right? I'm now operating on the edit. And so when I painted out those other things, right, like the person, that's no longer in the prompt. So now it's been taken out, right? So this is where it gets into that like deleting and substituting sort of component, right? If I were to, if I would have said dark figure wearing a yellow jacket, it would have kept them in there and it would have changed the jacket, right?
Yeah. Because then, this can even be a working piece, right? Like you could take this into, I'm just going down the rabbit hole now. You could take this into like, okay, I like where this has started. Maybe not like where my favorite, end point is. I can take this into edit and then retexture it using like a style reference code. And then like we get a whole new aesthetic for what it could look like. Like I like this structure
there you
of
go.
the image.
There you go.
Let me play with it now. Let me go add like these multicolor, style references to it, or something that's more like animated and soft with like, Pixar style, or,
So
let's
do that.
Yeah. So take something that's simple, and then we'll go run it in in retexture.
100%.
Right?
Yeah, let's do that. So while this is generating, let's see if we can find like a style that we like. They're on my SREF explorations here.
You got a bunch of good ones.
Let's see, something that fits. But like, let's take this. So let's go back here. All right, this is done. So now upscaled it. You can go into editor and open in full editor. All right, so now what we could do is let's take out the style reference here. Let's make sure I don't have anything that would compete against this. I'm going to play around with style weights. Now you can't use permutations in here, but let me just make sure too. I don't want too much chaos. Style. Okay. Let's start with like 200. And let's do a 500. So again, like the original, this was the SREF code that we used, right? So you sort of see this neon red coming through.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Was the prompt you just used there imagine? In that SREF code? Because I like that. That's a good one.
Oh,
no,
the skull.
All right,
Yeah.
I thought it said just imagine. I'm like, all right, I bring it back to Discord days.
Yeah, but so to your point, like this is another, and I don't, like I know this exists, but like I don't know if I would have thought of that in the moment. Like there are also different ways to do this. So that's why this is cool, is because it's like I really like the image and composition of that, and I don't want to change anything. But now I'm taking advantage of Midjourney's structure. And to your point, that's the whole purpose of retexture, right? It's taking the actual structure and composition and the placement of things, and it's keeping that still. It's just painting over it, reskinning it, I guess, if you will. So, like, here you go. We've played around with a few different weights here. This was like SW100. That looks like enough, right? I can run these over and over again. This 200 started bringing in like more than neon. right? And these kind of get
Sick.
crazy.
Oh, so like the walls now, like, now I'm like, all right, now we went from stairway to heaven to stairway to hell.
Right, dude. I mean, like, we're all over the place, right?
Yeah,
So
I like it.
So I think I'm glad you brought that up because we really did piece this together in a very strategic way. Do I use that same process every single time? No.
No.
But this is like one of those ways you can do it. And it's like, well, we just started with the idea of one thing. We built it. We found a style reference that we liked the color aesthetic for to save us some time, so we don't have to get all that lighting, shadow, composition stuff down. Then we put all this, we found something that we liked, took the structure, reskinned it.
And
right?
see, this is perfect for the Midjourney. Like, this is why Drew and I, probably me more so, will, like, if you gave me 12 hours in the day, I couldn't stop, because now I see these red cloudy walls and I'm like, I want to play with that. Like, let's play with the texture of the walls. Like, that's when it goes like nuts. Like, okay, now I see the clouds there. I see the idea that Midjourney generated that I didn't generate. It generated that idea of the cloudy walls, or like these like sort of like ethereal, smoky sort of walls, and I'm like, I could play with that. And then go into the textures, make it deeper, make it softer. Those could be like bumpy walls. Then you're getting into this whole sort of like, take this in a different direction. Like, you can get. And are we saying that this escalator image is like something Drew and I would probably put up right now on our social feeds? No, but like the idea of thought process of going through this stuff, or like those tiger stripe walls, like whatever the hell that was, that was like something like that. Like,
that's
just
wild.
a cool texture.
Yeah.
Like, I don't even know what to call that. Because then you play with that, and then you can get more depth in those walls. If you want more depth in them, you probably highlight them or retexture this and add Q2, to it to get more, defined.
There you go. Yeah.
Texture. So
it's endless. It's endless.
This is why we end up in these rabbit holes for 10 hours. It's like, because it can go so far, and if you have like a curious mind and a creative sort of like, I don't know where this can end, you can't stop. Like, you can't stop. But yeah, that's because that's where I'm always. I don't know about you. Like, when I'm doing things, like, I think because you might have more of like a very focused on like the portrait side of things, like people and like getting what you want out of that. And I'm so ADD between like the environment also being like super intricate that I always want to play with something in the environment, which then leads me to wasting a ton of time. Because I'm just like, oh, the character's cool. What else can I do? Like, to make this like a 1980s staircase with,
this
like a devil standing at the top of the stairs.
This almost has like a Stranger Things kind of vibe starting to go into it too. Yeah.
Because then you can do this forever. The textures of the walls. Then you take the walls out and make it like, just like straight up sky and clouds, and it's just an escalator in the sky. Like, I don't know. You can go. I'm already like chomping at the bit to go, like test all this stuff again.
Yeah.
Just to see where it all goes.
Like,
but
here, I don't need any of this. Maybe we just put like Satan standing at the top.
Santana might be good too with his guitar up at the top.
Oh, okay, let's do that.
It's not going to show up, but I mean, it's funny. Like Carlos Santana, or just like rock star or something like that. Good.
Santana standing at the top of the escalator, playing an instrument. Take that. Let's run that. And I'm moving so fast here. I'm not able to kind of to really think
Edit.
about this.
Yeah, or like rethink it. It might show up, it might not. But
yeah, so this is where it's again, right? Might show up, might not. Then maybe you go and find your image reference, throw it in there, you know, and add that in, and then you're probably going to get it. And then going back to that point of playing with the image reference weight, you know, and just kind of seeing how flexible it is. So let's see if like it started to get a little something, right?
Interesting.
Hey.
You're getting something.
And
right?
we didn't describe, like we just put Carlos Santana. We didn't describe what this person looks like. We didn't provide an image reference, right? This is literally one reroll on top, so like 8 images. Again, it's one of those things. Are we getting what we're looking for? If not, like we ran it twice, that's where we would make the adjustment. If we are getting what we want for, then maybe we make a minor adjustment, a tweak, a paint, or something like that, where it's just more refinement at that stage.
Just highlight. I'm just curious now. Just highlight the walls real quick, and then like I just want to type like escalator in the clouds or something like that, and just see. And we'll add like Q2 and see if that comes up with some nice like, sort of weird way to show that we're we're either in the stairway to heaven or hell here.
Let's do it.
I think the SREF code is going to give us a little bit more red, but
I was going to say, do we want to take that out?
yeah, let's just put escalator in the escalator in the sky or escalator in the clouds. Probably get rid of mostly everything.
And I think this is a good thing to point out too. I don't know how people really handle these types of situations. My guess is they're not deleting and like they're doing this sort of thing that we're thinking about, which is what's already in the image. We don't need to leave that in because that's just cluttering up potential like hierarchy and strength on what we're actually trying to get. So we could just put wide angle shot of escalators in the clouds
and then
of heaven.
Get some Q2 in there so we get some depth in the clouds.
Let's take style weight out. Don't need that. And it won't like that very much. Submit. Let's hit it twice. I always like to run things usually twice at least.
See if it'll actually do it for us.
I think what's taking the clouds out would be interesting. We could always, or the SREF out, interesting. Didn't really get it the way we wanted it, huh?
Nope. So this is where, then you could probably play with the text prompt.
Like we could,
like fluffy cloud textures or something like that.
Cloud textures surrounding, and this is where it's like you can reiterate and say the same thing in a different way to enhance and probably get what you're looking for. So this is the step that you and I would probably take before we realize, okay, we might need to make an adjustment. Like maybe it's the image reference or maybe it's like a remix kind of thing or whatever it is, right? So, and the fluffy cloud textures surrounding the escalator on both sides. The clouds are have an ethereal glow coming through.
You might just need to click on the edited image too, where they actually have the sides painted.
Yes, thank you. So let's go back here.
I do that all the time.
Let's go back here. I know. That's why it's like, dude, you got to like double check this stuff every time. So let's add the Q2 and maybe we'll run Q2, but we'll also run it without it. Because sometimes the quality can affect the prompt. But let's see. We really doubled down on the clouds here. Clouds, cloud textures, clouds again, right? Yeah. So let's go ahead and submit that. Let's take Q2 out just to see what happens. I like this. This is guys. I think this should be really helpful because I don't think there's a lot of content out there that really exists where you're just spending time with us going through the thought process.
Yeah.
And this is really what it's all about. Because so these were the original images we got. We didn't get what we wanted, right? This is where we started to add in the clouds and we gave it more instruction.
Yeah.
Right? We started to double down on this is where we had it before. Now we added fluffy cloud textures. There's an ethereal glow coming through, right? So now it's forcing them into the image more consistently, and it's coming through on every image, right? Yeah. So if we're getting close here, maybe it's just about rerunning this a couple more times, right? If there's something that, is, again, 90% of the way there, this is where you can, edit this and just, fill in the gaps again or readjust the aspect ratios. So it really is a bottomless pit is what we're trying to say.
And then, like, here's like a totally different thing for me, right? Like, and even let's just say we didn't get those clouds with that text prompt reiteration, what I would probably do, this is just my thought process, I'd go take the SREF code that we apply to this. I would go into just regular create. I'd probably do the same, like fluffy clouds with like fluffy cloud textures, with an ethereal glow, hit the SREF code, enter it to create my own reference image and then bring it back into the editor, right? So you just like, it's not creating what I want. Right. Oh, and then so we need to add an image reference. Right. So let's go create our own image reference and then bring it back in.
Love it.
Right.
Let's just go ahead and do it. So we got this.
Let's take the escalator out. Yeah. Clouds of heaven.
Yep. Perfect. Fluffy cloud textures. We don't need this.
Maybe add clouds of heaven back in. That might do it. That might be good too.
Clouds of heaven. Can't remember what I had, but clouds of heaven, fluffy cloud textures. Let's move this back here. The reason I'm doing that is because let's focus on what we're actually going for. What's the most important thing? That we get fluffy cloud textures, right? Then let's get into the details. So let's run this. Let's run this. This is where it comes back to style weight. So maybe we want to, the default is 100. Maybe we want to try like a 200, and then we could also try like a.
Do you have a style reference in there?
Just the code. Just the code.
Oh, there. I didn't even see it.
Right, but like, damn.
Okay, so here we go.
You know?
Now you might like something like this, right? Like that one's cool too.
Which one you want to go with?
Let's do that like pastel-y kind of like multicolored situation, wherever that was.
Tell me when to stop.
That one.
This one? Okay.
Yeah, that one's got good fluffy textures, right? Copy that image.
Perfect. Let's go back to get lost in here. Okay.
Click on that and edit the one with the walls painted. There we go. And then you could pop this in as an image reference.
We're moving at lightning speed here. Again, can't use permutations here, so maybe what we'll do is we'll try this a few times. We might also want to take... We already have the escalators in, so what I'm thinking, Rory, is why don't we just go back and use the same prompt that we just used for this. Let's go into edit, where we were. Let's throw this in. So again, we're just like doubling down on it in addition to using the image reference. We just for reference, we don't have to go this far. Like you don't have to do all this.
But this is also helpful if like you're working with a client, they want something very specific, right? Like if they want this fluffy cloud texture, like let's just say that's like their main feedback. I need this fluffy cloud texture. It needs to be more like this. It needs to be more defined clouds, whatever.
Like taking them out.
Creating your own image reference. Right, that can be super helpful here. Instead of trying to go source it externally, you can create it yourself. And if you really want to focus on the cloud texture, just like prompt for cloud texture, right, and then go bring it back in.
Perfect. Yeah. Let's do two image weights here. We'll just see what we got. And again, sometimes we get confused here with the retexture edit. Right now, we're doing edit. We're not retexturing it anymore. We're going to the edit. We've painted that. Just to reiterate. This first one, I think we did with image weight 1, right?
Really getting the fluffy cloud texture now.
And then this is like image weight 0.5, right? So this is where this is where you can really play because like how much of that do you want to come through? We could even go 2, and then let's go like down to like a 0.25, like just enough to like give them a hint of what's there.
And you could also style reference it too here. You know, you can just straight up instead of image weight, go style reference on it, see what happens.
Great point. That's a great point. Yeah. So like we could change this, or we could even add it. Like I mean, we could stack it,
do both.
Right? Whatever we wanted to do. Yeah. So I mean, now we're really starting to dial it in. But
yeah. So that's where, again, it's just like it's not I didn't get it. It's let's give up. It's like you can get there. You can get what you want. You know, then there's taking it even further. Like if you want to blend different styles. I'm not saying we're going to do this right now, but just like maybe you wanted the clouds to be like more realistic style. Then you go and generate a picture of just clouds in the sky. Just add that. It doesn't have to have the style reference in there, the style code in there. Or you want it to be totally different, right? Like using your, like I'm thinking of like your little like minimalistic lightning bolt with a cloud. Like maybe I want something like that in there. You can get really creative. Like I said, this is for Drew and I. Like this isn't like our magnum opus of image creation here. Just like we're showing the direction of like.
But here's the thing, dude. This is what we talk about.
Yeah.
You have to find the problems to find the solutions.
Yeah.
You know, like you have to run to the problems head on to find the solutions, whether that's in Midjourney or out of Midjourney. And so the reason you and I know this is because we've experimented enough, or we've run into these. Mm-hmm. And if you don't, you're not going to know to do this stuff, right? And you might get frustrated, but there's always a way to get to what you want, I think is the underpin.
Yeah. And like I said, there's no end to it now, because now you can go and really start to screw with it in terms of the aspect ratio. Oh, maybe we want to scale it. Like we don't like how tight it is on that little circle, the little half arch on top. And you just want to, pull it up a little bit. Just like maybe give it a little bit, a couple pixels to breathe. Like, there you go. Sometimes it's not, it's not as crazy as it seems. Like doing something like this too hopefully won't screw the image up too much. Like things will stay relatively simple. You don't have to go and turn it into 4x5. Here you can do this and just like scale it up a little bit at a time. You know, that's not great for keeping your fast hours, but if you're trying to get
Yeah, right.
you can do it.
Just so happens I have plenty of fast hours left right now, which is a rarity.
See, like that's
but-
perfect. Now we have a little bit more room to breathe. Like
Yep.
it's not totally, from a designer standpoint. I
Let's
know
say
people-
you didn't like how this kind of like
yeah,
thing right here kind of starts to look a little wonky.
a little meh.
Submit it, run that. So sometimes it is still about kind of piecing things together, but
Yeah,
there are times when you can generate something and you get the image you want, and maybe you just subtle vary and subtle strong, and that's good. And there are times when maybe you build it piece by piece. You've talked about that a lot, right? It's just like building in layers.
yeah, because this is we're doing it in layers. Also, sometimes like even upscaling this, just like upscaling the gallery, you might even
like, there
fix
we
those
go.
little lights, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes it does
because
that.
sometimes creative upscale like will fix some of those little imperfections.
Yeah,
And I'll use creative a little bit more when there's not a human face involved, because with the face it starts to smooth it over too much. But creative upscaler will fix some of those like imperfections too. So
this is like, again, this was I'm liking that we're doing it this way, because I think it makes more sense when you, instead of like trying to explain it, you just like see
dude, yeah.
how this stuff goes, because it's
I think this was really good. I mean,
yeah,
look how long that took us to go through one situation, right? And that's and we even just ran permutations on what, like I think like stylize and maybe the aspect ratio. But I mean, there are so many other things, right? Because I think if you're in exploration mode and you want to really break out of what Midjourney might give you, maybe you ramp chaos from 5, you run it up to like 25.
yeah,
That's more of the exploratory stage, I would say, like 25 to 50, and then above 50, you're just getting pure nightmare fuel chaos, right?
Yes.
Like to borrow that from Rory, but
and we started with what, the word escalator, and then we ended up with Carlos Santana at the gates to heaven with fluffy clouds surrounding an escalator with a cloak figure. Like,
love it.
You can't prompt for. I mean, you could try to prompt for that, but probably not going to end up in the same way. But it's that's like the tool at its finest. Like and it feeds like your creativity. Like if we didn't try to play with the walls for graffiti or changing it to something else, then we wouldn't have gone down the cloud route. And then it gave us something that kind of looked like clouds or smoke. And we're like, oh, let's go the cloud route. See what we can do to get there.
Great point.
Right? Like, these are just all different ways to think about getting from point A to point B. And we could probably do an episode like this every once in a while, just to like really play with stuff.
I think so. Like this is really good. We've been wanting to do something like this, and I think we were even just talking about before the episode. Do we need to do this on a live? But I think we actually made that work pretty organically without a lot of dead space in there, and really just kind of iterating on the fly. Again, some of these decisions, like you actually want to take a second and breathe and think about. We were just kind of
ripping
it
to try and get this done in an hour.
Yeah.
So what's it going to be? You guys sitting here watching us for 6 hours come up with the Carlos Santana in the sky.
Yeah. Love it, dude. Love it.
It's good. The other thing, the last thing I'll probably say on this too is, again, I've said it once, I've said it a million times. The whole Midjourney experience is an iterative process. Like, just play. It just like chase rabbit holes. Because of that, you learn the tool. Like, that's it. Because you can't figure out how to get the clouds in edit, then you're like, can I use an image reference? Should I use a style reference? Blah, blah, blah. You'll get there, and then that skill will be utilized at some other point when you actually need it. So just play.
You're wearing a big ass tool belt, and when you first start, all you have is a fucking hammer, and then you're adding the wrench, the screwdriver, like all the other stuff that comes with it as you encounter these. And like, I'll use this as an example. That whole image ref in editor piece wasn't really even something I was using at all, mostly because I don't even know if I knew about it before we had like that one pod episode and you brought that up. And then now I'll have situations where it's like, I've got that in my back pocket, right? I can try that as another way to get there. And of course, this is all relative, because if you can't get something and you do have those limitations, you can always bounce out and do something like Photoshop. But I think it's important to at least try it and figure out what's possible in Tool, because in the long run, it's going to pay off.
Yeah. And the, image reference is slept on. It's always been there.
It has been. It is slept on.
It's always been there. And I think people get obsessed with style reference, but image reference, it's the construction.
It was the OG reference, dude. That you and I used to use that a lot, and I think even you were using that before I was, in terms of like
layers.
I think getting into like I can't remember, man, but like when we first started with Midjourney, I think maybe even getting into shit, I don't even know, dude. It's just been so long, but like
it's a blur.
So
total blur.
Anyway, yeah, I mean this was awesome, dude. I'm glad we did this. We'll have to figure out another situation that we can do, because obviously there are a lot of decisions that go into it, which is the underpinning of this entire episode. And to explore those different decisions and get you guys thinking about it, we do need to kind of like show those things and take our time with it too.
It would definitely be a fun live episode, right? Where people are like chiming in from the sidelines and just being like, "Dude, go this direction, okay?"
Yeah.
Well, let's see where we can go with that, and we'll see what we like. And I think it's this is a good like, this is like play to learn sort of thing, not like go use this today on your clients. Like, this is how you learn the tool to maximize all the different features that it has, and this is the only tool that you have all those features in. Like that's there's not another one out there that you can go this creatively with it and really. And
you know what? Maybe that's the other episode is we maybe focus more on like the client side and like how we might bring in the collaboration aspect to it, and the mood board piece of it, or all those things now that we have got new features and new toys to play with.
Totally. No, sick, so good.
Yeah.
I will say, probably the last like 2 months, I was kind of like, I'm not saying fading Midjourney, but not as excited about it. Like, I'm not like, let me go in there and just play around. Mood boards, personalization profiles, totally got me back in. Going back and looking at our old prompts from last week and like looking at the old images, totally back in. And like, again, like today, just totally like, here we go.
I think
just
that's a good point, man.
Create. Yeah.
Yeah. I had fun with that. Just kind of like leave something here. Leave you guys with something as we bounce out. Like, I had fun with like I have like a kaleidoscope one that like I used a bunch of images, and then I basically ran the same prompt through this kaleidoscope several times, and I just got like so many good cool things that I would never like, one, never be able to prompt for, but like two, it just kind of like instantly throws that vibe right into it, and it's just so much fun because like, again, I don't know. I could have done this before, but it would have been different, right? And I probably wouldn't have had the idea for it, but it's like I could take the same prompt and run it through different mood boards.
Yeah.
If depending on what the mood boards are, like maybe there's one that's a little bit more psychedelic or this or that, and you're going to get totally different things, right? So it's another fun little rabbit hole. So
I love this one, dude. This is awesome.
Like this one, dude. I love this. Yeah.
Is that with the style reference code, same prompt?
This one has a style reference. These ones don't. This is all just the mood board. I'll send you the link if you want to play with it.
Yeah, this is super cool. Because then again, like adding the style reference code to it or a mood board to it, it's going to take it in a whole new direction.
100%.
So this is it. Midjourney, if you're listening, we're back in. We're back in hard. Come on the podcast.
We're back in. Now open up an affiliate program, a creator program. Show us some love. Like, we got to do something, y'all. We got to do something.
The one request I do have, if you are listening, with the new personalization profiles, and this is also a tip for anyone who wants to go back and find this. Actually, let me share my screen real quick. This will be, I shared this on Twitter the other day because I personally had totally forgotten about it. If you are unorganized, like me, I am totally unorganized. If you go to Discord and you go back to, if you want to find your old personalization codes, this is exceptional. Let me just find bot here. Look, if you just type in on Discord, you can't do this on the website, I don't think. If anyone has this on the website, please let me know. List personalized codes. That's it. List _ personalized codes, / of course. Hit enter. Bang. Gives
Shows
you all of them. Which I was like, I didn't even know I had this one, or this one here. There's like 3 or 4 that I didn't even know I had. I remember the 2WW whatever, like the BL2, and then I remember maybe the first one. I didn't even know I had all these. So, it's a good place to go back and find all of them. I wish the website would do this, or Midjourney if you're listening. Can I go back and can I just change my global profile to this? Because I I love these. So
hey, actually, one more thing before we go. Can you tell the folks too that idea you had about Style Tuner?
Oh, so if you are like me, again, you loved your little Style Tuner, you can go and I found all my, I searched all my old Style Tuner images in the Organize tab, found those, added those to a mood board, and then you have your Style Tuner codes again. Like, that's it. You just have to add the curated images with the aesthetic that you want to the mood board, and then you can regenerate them off of that, and basically brought Style Tuner back. You can't create the same, you technically could go on Discord, go back to, version 5.2 and create more style codes if you wanted to do that. I don't know if you need to, or tune styles if you wanted to, or you can take your old ones that you really liked and just put them in a mood board. So, little tip.
I like that because we talked about Style Tuner. It was really good at dialing those in. Also, going back to your Discord point, I just tried this. You can also put list /list, and it'll bring up Style Tuner codes or whatever those. Were they codes? I think they're
Tune styles, I believe. They're whatever. It did come out as a code. It would say -- style, then code.
List tuners. And then, it then gives you the tuner link, right? Because if you remember, it took you to its own link with all the ratings. And then it also gives you what you put in for the text for that as well. So just another way to go back and revisit all that stuff while you're bringing that up.
That one's for the real heads.
Yeah. Real
heads now.
OGs only.
That was good, man. That was good. We got a lot, even on the last part, we just dumped a lot of quick stuff in there. But this was needed again. It's another
100%
cathartic episode.
Dude, and the best part is we're like, what are we going to talk about today? There's no real updates.
We had no plan.
Boom. We just come in and we just drop that. But
no plan going.
Anyway, I really hope this one is helpful. I think it will be because let's be honest, I don't think we get enough perspective on how other people operate within their workflows of trying to come up with an idea from ideation to execution, right? And then especially all those iterations in between, which we covered. So hopefully that was valuable. We'll come up with another banger next week.
Hell yes. Like and subscribe, please. We love you all.
Like and subscribe. We'll see you guys in the next one.
See ya.
Goodbye.